Okay, something else that's useful to do with shapes is being able to line them up, or actually it's called align. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to delete some things I don't want first of all. So I'm going to select this one, hit delete on my keyboard and get rid of this one as well. So this one, I'm going to make more than one of them. So I'm going to move it over here and I'm going to click the copy twice. So I end up with 3 copies. I'm going to put them randomly around the screen. So I might want to line these things up so that they're all in line. So perhaps I want to line up with the top of this one. So how do I do that? Well, I select the first one, then I hold down Shift and I click the next 2. So it's selected all 3. I can now go into my edit and I can find the one that says Align, and I can click on the Align button. It opens up a little window for me, and that window is saying, how do I want to align them? Well, you can see from the little pictures how it's doing it. So I've got a few options here. I could say align them all to the top. So if I choose this top one and click OK, and then my hand has turned into a locate hand, and what it's saying is which one do you want to be the one to line them up against. So if I want to line them up against this one, I choose this one and they all line up. Okay, although it's aligned them all at the top, and I could have done that in a number of different ways, it still hasn't lined them up evenly, so I've got gaps between them. They're still selected. If they weren't selected, I just reselect them, but this time I go to edit and I can say space them evenly. So now if I space them evenly, it offers how do I want to space them evenly. Okay, now there's different options here that you can see, but if I go for, let's try this one here, we'll center them across and say OK. And you can now see that it's put them evenly so that the gap here and the gap here is exactly the same size. So these 2 ways, using edit align and edit space, is a really good way of making things accurately appear on the page. So there's a few other things I just want to show you very quickly, which are going to be useful to you. So I'm going to highlight these ones and get rid of them all. Highlight them all, hit delete. They're gone. I want to show you 2 other drawing tools. So over here, if I hold down my path tool, and I've got one here that says draw a closed bezier curve. Okay. I've got a second one over here which is called draw a closed polyline. We're going to look at both of those. So we'll do the polyline first. So I've chosen that one. What this means is it's going to join a shape up. So if I randomly click the shape around, make a kind of shape. Now it's still floating around. If I now use my right mouse click, you can see it joins those things up. So it's made a shape for me. Now this shape, unlike the squares that I drew, is already one object. So if I wanted to fill it with colour, I don't have to do anything else with it first. In fact, I don't have to even use solid colour. I could use a gradation, which is like a different sort of fill, which goes from dark to light, or I can do it various ways. We'll stick with a linear one, but we'll change the colours. Black's not very nice. So instead of black, we'll choose maybe a pink colour at the first part, and at the end of it we will use maybe a green colour, and we'll see what that looks like. So it's going to do a gradual fill across those kind of colours. I'm going to hit OK, and there you can see I've put a gradient fill into that shape instead. Let's duplicate that on my duplicated version. I'm going to come over here, I'm going to select it again. This time I'm going to edit the property of it. I'm going to do it a different way. So this time my gradation fill, I'm going to change the type of fill. Instead of a gradient fill, I could go for a texture. Okay, now there's different textures in there that you can load. So perhaps, I don't know, let's make it look like it's made of material. So we'll go for a cloth. There's some pretty funky looking cloths that are part of it. Doesn't matter which one we use, although that one doesn't look very nice. Let's try this weird checkerboard one. Click open and click OK. And this time it's put a different sort of fill in there. Now, in the same way as we did before, we could click on these objects and we can look at the properties. Properties allow us to change the basic information, but start editing allows us to change the nodes. So again, if we wanted to actually make the shape slightly differently, we can manipulate it afterwards, and in the same way as we did before, if we wanted to add nodes in or put arcs in or curves or anything like that to make this a different sort of shape, we can do that. When we're done, we hit end edit. So this is the polyline. If we now change that and we go to the other one, the bezier curve, what does that look like? Well, in fact, I might delete one of these to give us a bit of space before we do that one. Let's get rid of these, hit and delete. I'm going to go for this one, and I'm going to draw some curved lines. So all I'm doing every time I click it puts a curve in. Now if I have a small distance between each one, it only does a little curve. If I have a big distance, it does a big curve. And in the same way, when I get to the end, I right mouse click and it seals my shape. So again, I can select my shape, I can make that have a color fill in it of some sort, or a pattern fill. I can do all sorts of weird and wonderful things if I wanted to. I think we'll stick with just a solid fill of color for the time being, just so we can see what it looks like. So if I want to select this and go into my edit, this time when I go into the edit, you can see that it comes up with a bunch of what's called handles. I'm going to zoom in so you can see these handles more clearly. Okay, the middle one, the orange one here, is the anchor point, so I can drag the whole thing and I can move it somewhere else. Now you can see I've still got gridlock switched on, so if I didn't want gridlock on, I could turn that off and then I can move this anywhere. It will go to any particular point on my page. If I don't want to move the orange point, I can grab the handle, and if I move the handle, you can see it changes the curve. So this one's changing the curve on the right hand side, and if I put it further away, it makes a bigger curve, and so on. Click and there's the curve fixed. If I take the other handle, it curves the other side. Okay, so again, it gives you a lot of options for changing the shape around after you've already made it. Okay, the last thing I'm going to show you on here is just the text tool, and that's pretty straightforward. So if I wanted to put some text on here or something afterwards, I could come up to here to where it says ABC, choose my ABC tool, and if I now click somewhere on the screen and I can type in, what should I type? Let's type my name. Okay, settings will allow me to choose different fonts and things. So it's just on Arial at the moment. Now probably typographical height is what you're used to, so this will be the same as you use in things like Word. So normally 12 point is the height of text on Word. We'll make it a bit bigger, we'll go for 20 points, see what that looks like. And I can change my color, all that kind of stuff. I'm not going to do that now. I'm just going to click OK, and I'll click OK again, and there's my text. Now my text is way too small at 20 point on here, so I can select my text. If I hold down Shift while I drag, it keeps it all in proportion. I can move it around and do different things with it, click off it, see what it looks like. So there's my text. Now there is a way of putting text around a curve if we wanted to. We won't do that now, but there is a feature that allows you to draw a curved line and then select it and do curved lettering. So if we wanted to do that later on, we can do that. Okay, but I think that's enough to start with.